Most men spend their entire lives trying to become powerful through addition. More discipline, more skills, more connections, more grinding, more sacrifice piled on top of more sacrifice. They believe with genuine conviction that if they simply keep adding, keep stacking bricks, keep pouring effort in, eventually the weight of everything they have accumulated will tip the scales in their favor. It never does. And the reason it never does is not because they are not working hard enough. It is because they are pouring into a container that is riddled with holes. Every brick they lay, every hour they invest, every ounce of potential they generate, it leaks out before it can compound. They stand at the end of every year, exhausted and confused, surrounded by the puddle of their own wasted capacity. The Niccolò Machiavelli understood something that most men spend their entire lives never grasping. Power is not what you construct. Power is what remains after you have burned away everything that makes you weak. You are not struggling because you lack the raw material. You are struggling because you have been socialized, deliberately, systematically, into a set of behaviors designed to keep you manageable, likable, predictable, safe to be around. These behaviors feel natural because they were installed in you before you were old enough to question them. They feel virtuous because the people who installed them told you they were virtuous. They are not virtuous. They are leaks. And right now, they are draining everything you pour into yourself. There are 8 of them. Yeah, it's 8 specific behavioral patterns that operate like silent punctures in the architecture of your authority. And the process of eliminating them must follow one non-negotiable rule. It must be done in complete silence. The moment you announce a transformation, you invite everyone who benefits from your current weakness to mobilize against it. You hand them a target. You give them time to prepare. Machiavelli was explicit on this point. The most effective move is the one your opponent never sees coming, because you never gave them a warning it was in motion. You do not declare your ascent, you execute it, in private, in darkness. And one morning, the people around you wake up to find you unrecognizable, and realize with a slow chill that they missed their window to stop you. Like, here are the 8 behaviors you must quietly starve to death. 1. The explanatory reflex. The most common way men surrender authority without knowing it is through what we can call the explanatory reflex, the automatic, almost compulsive urge to justify every decision to anyone who questions it. Someone raises an eyebrow at your choice and your mouth opens. Someone pushes back on your position and you begin constructing a case. Someone seems confused or unhappy with something you have decided, and before you have even consciously chosen to do it, you are already offering reasons, context, and logic in the hope that if they just understand your thinking, they will stop making you feel like you need their permission. That hope is the problem. Machiavelli wrote that to explain is to submit. The moment you offer a justification, you have silently acknowledged that the other person holds judicial authority over your choices. You have moved yourself from the position of the decision-maker to the position of the defendant. And defendants do not command rooms, they plead to them. Worse, every reason you give becomes a handle. If you say you cannot do something because of X, Y, and Z, the person in front of you will immediately begin looking for ways to dismantle X, Y, and Z. You have not resolved their resistance. You have armed it. You gave them the specific leverage points they needed to pull you back. The correction is not to become cold or hostile. It is simply to stop volunteering the courtroom. When someone questions your decision, a calm and complete response might be nothing more than, "It made sense for me." When someone pushes further, and the response does not have to expand, it can simply hold. You do not move, you do not elaborate, you do not fill the silence with justifications just because the silence feels uncomfortable. The discomfort is theirs to manage, not yours to resolve. Do this quietly. Do not announce that you are done explaining yourself. That declaration is itself just another form of explanation, and it immediately invites people to test the new boundary. Simply stop. The first few times, people will press harder because they are accustomed to receiving your reasoning on demand. But when the reasoning consistently does not arrive, they stop demanding it. Not because you established a new rule, because they ran into a wall enough times to understand it was solid. A person who does not explain themselves becomes a mystery, And in the architecture of power, so mystery is a far stronger position than logic. 2. The accessibility trap. There is an economic law that governs not just markets, but people. Scarcity creates value, and abundance destroys it. Most men have made themselves as common as gravel. They are reachable at all hours. They respond to messages within minutes. They accept invitations without hesitation. Their schedule bends to accommodate anyone who asks. Their time is, in the most literal economic sense, free, and things that are free are treated accordingly. They are used without thought, discarded without guilt, and taken for granted without apology. A prince who is always visible is eventually held in contempt, Machiavelli observed. Familiarity does not breed respect. It breeds a sense of ownership. And people who feel they own your time do not respect your presence, they resent your absence. Think about the people in your life whose time genuinely feels precious to you. The ones you have to work to reach. The ones whose response carries weight because you know it was not given automatically. Their scarcity is not accidental. It is the mechanism through which they have quietly communicated their value without ever having to state it. Do not announce a digital detox. Do not tell people you are reducing your availability or focusing on your priorities. That is just a plea for attention dressed up as self-discipline. Instead, simply become harder to reach. Let hours pass. Let non-essential messages wait. Accept fewer invitations, not with explanation, but with a simple decline. In the space of that waiting, something happens inside the mind of the person waiting. They begin to think about you. They wonder what you are doing that matters more than responding to them. Their perception of your status rises in direct proportion to your unavailability. You do not have to tell them you are valuable. You allow them to conclude it themselves. And a conclusion a person reaches on their own is far more durable than anything you could have told them. 3. The open book problem. Your face is a user manual. Every automatic reaction you display, the flinch when you are caught off guard, the brightness in your eyes when something excites you, the tightening of your jaw when someone says something that gets under your skin, is live intelligence about the interior landscape of your psychology. And, to anyone paying attention, when that intelligence is directly actionable. When a competitor knows which insult destabilizes you, they will deploy it right before a negotiation. When someone knows what you fear, they will hold it over you. When someone knows what you desperately want, they will position themselves between you and it. Machiavelli's observation that a prince must be a great dissembler was not a moral prescription. It was a strategic one. Transparency is not virtue in a competitive world. It is vulnerability. The practice here is what some strategists call the tactical delay, a deliberate pause between stimulus and response. Something happens. Before your face moves, before your voice changes register, before your body betrays you, you pause. You process internally. You decide what to show and what to withhold. You respond from choice rather than reflex. This is not about becoming cold or robotic. It is about understanding that internal experience and external expression are two entirely different things, and that you have the right and the strategic obligation to control the gap between them. As you develop this, people will begin to find you harder to read. They will test you with the things that used to produce reactions and receive nothing. They will find this unsettling. That unsettlement is often the first genuine stage of respect. They cannot map you, so they cannot maneuver around you. The remote control they had over your emotional state has been quietly deactivated, and they have no idea when that happened. 4. The free advice. Drain your capacity to think clearly, see patterns others miss, and generate solutions to complex problems is not a courtesy. It is capital. And like any other form of capital, how you deploy it determines the return you receive. The habit of solving other people's problems on demand is one of the most quietly devastating leaks in a person's position. It feels like generosity. It presents itself as contribution. But what it actually does is ensure that your most valuable resource, the one that took you years of experience and failure to develop, flows outward continuously to people who invest nothing in obtaining it and therefore value it accordingly. Think back across your history. The ideas you shared that someone else implemented. The strategies you handed over that built someone else's position. The problems you solved for people who are now ahead of you, in part because of the thinking you gave them for free. Your intellectual generosity did not make you a respected advisor. It made you a free resource. Stop volunteering solutions. When someone presents you with a problem, the first move is not to solve it. It is to ask what they have already tried. Make them demonstrate investment before you offer input. When the ask is genuinely significant, when what they want from you would take real thought and provide real value, create an exchange. Not always money, sometimes an alliance, sometimes a reciprocal commitment. Sometimes simply the recognition that this kind of thinking has a cost and that they are acknowledging it. When you stop giving your best thinking away reflexively, something shifts. The moments when you do speak begin to carry different weight. People lean in. They treat what you say with seriousness because they have learned, see through experience, that it does not come easily or cheaply. You do not have to tell them your counsel is valuable. You train them to understand it through the discipline of your silence. 5. The weight of comfortable loyalty. Somewhere in your circle, there are people you have kept not because the relationship serves your growth, but because ending it feels cruel. People from an earlier chapter of your life who no longer share your values, your ambitions, or your direction. People whose daily conversation gravitates toward complaint, gossip, and the quiet comfort of shared stagnation. You keep them because loyalty feels like a virtue, because history feels like a debt, because the alternative, allowing the distance to grow, feels like something a cold person would do, and you do not want to be cold. But here is what you are not acknowledging. Every hour spent in the company of someone who is actively moving in the opposite direction from your goals is not neutral. It is negative. Their gravity is real. Their cynicism is contagious. Their low ceiling becomes, through repeated exposure, your reference point for what is normal and achievable. Machiavelli was precise on this. A man is known by the company he keeps, and the company he keeps shapes the limits of what he believes is possible. Do not end these friendships with a declaration. Dramatic endings create embittered enemies who know your history and have the motivation to use it. Instead, employ the slow fade. Stop initiating. Accept fewer invitations. Be genuinely occupied with your own building. Allow the relationship to die of natural causes, not cruelty, but starvation of the attention that kept it alive. By the time the distance is undeniable, there is no rejection to react to. There is simply the quiet mutual recognition that life moved differently for both of you. That is not cold, that is honest, and the space it creates will be filled by people who are actually moving in your direction. 6. The cult of visible struggle. There is a modern obsession with broadcasting effort. The 4 a.m. alarm clock posted online. The long caption about sacrifice and the grind. The exhausted face worn like a medal. The implicit message underneath all of it. Look how much this costs me. Look how hard I'm working. Validate my suffering. In the world of power, this is catastrophically counterproductive. Visible struggle tells the people watching you exactly how much pressure it takes to make you sweat. It signals that you are operating at or near your capacity. It shows your ceiling. And it invites a specific kind of calculation in the minds of competitors. If this is what it takes to make him strain, what does it take to break him? The Italian Renaissance concept of sprezzatura describes the art of making difficult things appear effortless, the ability to carry tremendous capacity without showing the weight of it. The most formidable people in any room are almost never the ones explaining how hard they work to be there. They are the ones whose results appear complete and calm, as though the outcome was never seriously in doubt. Do your heaviest work in complete darkness. Never speak about your exhaustion. Never detail your sacrifices. When you deliver something exceptional, receive the acknowledgement simply, without walking anyone through the labor behind it. You want the people watching you to think not that you worked hard for that, but that you simply operate on a different level, that your standard of output is, for you, unremarkable. That perception, built quietly and maintained consistently, is a form of authority that no amount of grind posting can buy. 7. The complaint as confession. Every complaint is a confession. It confesses that you are subject to circumstances beyond your control. It confesses that something outside of you has the power to diminish your position. It confesses, to everyone within earshot, that you are not operating from a place of authority, you are reacting from a place of victimhood. Machiavelli wrote that fortune is a force that can be mastered only by those who take an active, aggressive stance toward it. The man who complains has surrendered to fortune. He has accepted the passive position, the position of the person to whom things happen, and he is broadcasting that surrender every time he opens his mouth to describe how unfair his circumstances are. There is a practical cost as well. Competitors see complaint as confirmation that you are struggling and press harder. Manipulators see it as an opening. They offer sympathy with one hand while they position the other to extract something. And the people who might have respected you recalibrate their assessment downward. Complaining does not generate sympathy from the people whose respect matters. It generates contempt. The policy is simple, and it is absolute. Solve it or leave it. If something is wrong in your environment, you either take action to change it or you remove yourself from it. But you do not narrate your unhappiness while remaining stuck in it. You do not seek sympathy as a substitute for strategy. When people see that you move through circumstances that would visibly break others, without comment, without complaint, without any indication that it costs you, they stop seeing you as a participant in the struggle. They begin to see you as a different category of person entirely. 8. The master leak, the need for external approval. Look carefully at each of the previous 7 behaviors, and beneath every single one of them you will find the same root. A need for the people around you to approve of who you are and what you are doing. You over-explain because you need them to understand. You remain perpetually available because you need to be needed. You display your emotional reactions because you need people to acknowledge and validate your feelings. You give away your best thinking because you need to be seen as valuable. You maintain relationships that are draining you because you need to feel liked. You broadcast your effort because you need recognition for it. You avoid holding firm standards because you need to avoid the discomfort of someone being unhappy with you. Every leak is a strategy for obtaining approval. Cut the master leak and the others begin to dry up because they lose the function they were serving. Machiavelli was stark on this. It is far safer to be feared than to be loved because love is a bond that men break whenever it becomes inconvenient, while the dread of consequence is a leash that holds. But he was not recommending tyranny. He was identifying a structural truth. The person whose internal state depends on your approval is a person you can control. Provide the approval, and they comply. Withhold it, and they destabilize. They are, in the most functional sense, owned. If your sense of yourself requires external confirmation to feel stable, then whoever controls that confirmation controls you. The construction of an internal validation system is not a single decision. It is a practice, built through repeated small acts of choosing your own judgment over the comfort of external endorsement. You make a decision. You evaluate it against your own values and your own standards. You determine whether it was right, and you do not look around the room to see who is clapping before you allow yourself to feel settled in that determination. The first few iterations are uncomfortable. People will be mildly displeased, they will be slightly confused, they will push back in small ways. And you will sit with that discomfort and discover, through direct experience rather than theory, that their disapproval does not actually damage you the way you were afraid it would. Each iteration builds the structure. Each time you hold without seeking outside confirmation, the internal framework becomes more load-bearing. Over time, the need itself diminishes. Not because you have forced yourself not to care, but because you have accumulated enough evidence to understand that you were never as dependent on it as you believed. The moment you stop needing approval is the moment you become genuinely difficult to manage. You cannot be rewarded into compliance with a compliment. You cannot be punished into submission by withholding validation. The handles are gone. And a person with no handles is a person that others, quite instinctively, begin to treat with a different quality of respect. 8 behaviors, 8 patterns that have been quietly dismantling your authority for years, each one individually survivable, collectively devastating. The urge you are feeling right now, the one that wants to share this, to post about it, to tell someone you are starting today. That urge is the master leak attempting one final transaction. It wants to convert your private decision into a public announcement in exchange for a hit of the validation you are supposed to be eliminating. Do not give it what it wants. Close this. Say nothing. Go back into your life and begin the silent work. Respond a little slower. Explain a little less. Hold the line a little longer. Work in private. Complain to no one. Approve of yourself first. Do this consistently, without announcement, without documentation, without an audience. And 6 months from now, the people who have known you longest will look at you and not quite be able to identify what has changed. You will seem more certain, more still, harder to reach and harder to read. The things that used to provoke you will pass over you without leaving a mark. The approval you used to need will have stopped mattering in ways that would have seemed impossible when you were still leaking it out of every interaction. They will ask what happened to you. And if you have learned anything here, you will already know the only correct answer to that question. Nothing. Nothing happened. Now keep going.